So cawsgurow bedwaq. Everybody, this is cawsgurow bedwaq. He is an oral historian, a poet, and he used to be a secondary teacher back in Kenya. He traveled a lot. He's a multilingual poet. You know, he can do poetry in English, Somali, and Swahili, I guess, right? Swahili or poetry. Yeah, multilingual. Marka kusoo dhawow cawsgurow to my YouTube channel, inshallah. So I'm just gonna get the questions ready. Like I've been waiting to ask you, or I've been waiting to have you on my channel for so long. Alhamdulillah, today I got the chance, you know. I try to put things together, alhamdulillah, binillah. And also, Marka, introduce yourself, inshallah, and yeah.
Aniga, my name is Abdurrashid Cawsgurow. My pen name is Bedwaq Cawsgurow.
Okay.
I am a playwright and poet. For the last 10 years, I think I dedicated some time for research on the ancient Somali faith and the Somali language, researching on it. So that is me. I know a little bit about the Waqiya faith and the history of our people.
Okay, that's really good. So I'm just gonna get right into the questions, so we could cover this in a short time, inshallah.
Okay.
And this is the second time I'm having an interview with someone who does Somali history. Second time. The first one was Muhammad Attan, and now it's you. So I haven't got used. I'm not used to having people yet. I might do some mistakes here and there, but all right.
No problem.
All right. The first question that I wanted to ask, and a lot of people wanted to know, is that where was the home of the Proto-Cushitic people?
The home of the Kushitic people is in northern Kenya.
Okay.
Northern Kenya, in the current Marsabit County.
Okay.
Along the Lake Turkana. Kenyatta named it Lake Turkana. But before that, it was for the indigenous people living there, the Rendile and the Gabra. The name they gave the lake was Lake Galambay. Galam means where water collects, or a water body. Bay means gray. So they used to call it Galambay. The Gabra called it Galamboy. The Rendile called Galambay. And in the modern Somali language, Bay, Bay, Boy, Abai, all mean the same thing. They mean gray. So the gray of the water is Bay. The gray for the Somali, the gray of the soil is Bay. You had Bay and Bakol.
Bay Bakol. Bay Dabo Mela Soma.
Yeah. So the gray of in the Somali language, the gray of the soil is Bay. That of the water is Bay. It's alkaline, and a bit salty lake. So that is when you look it from far, you see gray. When you look it from the mountains or the hilly sides of Marsabit County, you will see it to be gray. So that is why they call it Galambay. They're the people with the indigenous, the Kushitic people who live there right now. So that is, according to the myth, the Somali myth, that is the lake people crossed from east to west to separate the Gala and the Gale people when they were fighting. So that is according to the Kushitic myth, that is where the life of the Kushite started.
In Turkana, Galambay.
It was named in 1960 Lake Turkana. Before that, the white people, the colonial people, the colonizers called it Lake Rudolph. naming it after an Austrian prince, I think. Then from there, but the indigenous people called it Galambe all along. Galamboy or Galambe.
So the name Galambe, it's a Cushitic name, right? It's a Cushitic word.
It's Cushitic, yeah. Galan means Malay beer galan.
واحد قال of Somali عادي have Galambe.
Galan.
Okay.
Bay means, yeah.
All right. Okay. Mashallah. All right. The second one is how did the Cushitic language and how it came to be? How did it start? What was the first brink of what caused it to what caused us to create or make our own language? Because every civilization have their own historical what's it called, narration on how their language came to be and all of that. So how did the Cushitic language start?
And in the Cushitic myth, the language was we were a speechless nation, a nation of people who perceived God but could not communicate with each other. We did not have any. We did not have that the power to speak. That is. Then, according to the myth, Waq felt for his people. He realized he had a lot of issues to resolve, but they could not communicate effectively with each other. So he sent Tuke, that is the Somali crow, the black crow, the Kushitic crow. It is found from Lake Turkana to the Horn of Africa and up to the southern districts of a place like Lamu. You can still find that crow. It's smaller than the raven, called a dwarf raven, Somali crow. So God sent the Somali crow, and in Somali it's called Tuke. So in the myth, God sent Tuke to communicate to the people how they could acquire words. So the Tuke came to them, and normally with the Somali crow, when it crows, it raises its beak to the heavens. So that is people look at it. They had an idea that God was upstairs, God was in the skies. Then they realized that this thing is crying, wak, 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 looking at the sky. So that's from there they took the hint. And in the night when they were camel, they had camel keepers. So in the night when they returned to their houses, they go to a place, and it is called Nabo now. It's the place where the Waki people worship. They go to a place, then they start shouting. They shout together, wak, 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 together in unison. Then that way, God felt for them. Now He said they are making efforts. Then He inspired them one night. All of them, all the people in the place, inspired them like they say 103, sometimes 113 words, monosyllabus words. So that is now what forms the basis of the Somali or the Cushitic tongue. You hear like lahwan, nin, gar, ab, dil, dir. When you look at our language, you realize all what we speak is just driven from these monosyllabus words. So that's according to me. That is how the language started. In the next morning, everybody was happy. Among the words that were inspired to them was current Somali will call it deh. Deh means say. Sas deh. Say that. Deh. Now, that was one of the words that were inspired at that night. So in the morning when they wake up, everybody was greeting the other. Dah work. Dah work. Dah work as way of saying say work, praise work, pray to work, telling the others. That was now.
It's like Alhamdulillah.
Exactly. That is the first time it said these people. The first word that was spoken according to the myth, the first word that was spoken by Kushitic people was Dahwak. That became the name of the religion. From Dahwak, we went to Darwak, Garwak, Siwak.
What do they mean, Marka? Can you explain what those mean?
The religion, the same thing. Dehwaq,
Okay.
Darwaq means the right of God. Dar,
Okay.
Gar are the same words. Gar is right. Dar is Gar is Dar are the same thing. So from Garwaq, Dehwaq, Dahwaq, up to now in the southern side of the country, southern side of the Somali people, people living in the extreme south, in Jorre region, they will pronounce Deh not as Deh but Dah
Okay.
in the southern side of the country. So that is other Somali. The word now in the modern Somali that we speak, the word the waq means shouting.
Showing to walk.
No, not now. Right now, it lost that
In
meaning.
today's okay. In today's, yeah.
It means shouting.
Okay. So,
But initially, it meant say waq. They were copying, imitating the tukat when it shouted waq waq. From that waq waq, they picked the word dah waq when this language was inspired, according to the myth. That is.
okay.
So that was
All
the
right.
first word spoken in said by a Kushitic person.
Wow.
And
You know,
yeah.
now basically the thing I wanted to ask is that the story about the crow. You know, in the story of Adam and Eve, when their two sons kill each other, when Qabil kills Habil, what happens is that he doesn't know how to bury his brother. So a crow comes and shows him how to bury his brother.
Yeah.
So and also within the Kushitic myth, you have a crow showing them how to worship God and how to be better people. So this crow living, it also comes back into the deen. So that's really interesting to actually note as well.
When you look deeply, when you are exposed to the Waki mythology, then you look at Abrahamic religions, from the Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, you realize there's a lot of borrowing that happened. There's a lot of things. For example, in the Waki mythology, God expelled. In the Abrahamic mythology, God expelled Adam and Eve from heaven.
So,
where in the Waki mythology, God expelled Tuke and Gumeis from the heaven.
Okay, because I've got questions for that particular part, inshallah. We'll get to there. Now the second question is, since every civilization had a creation story, how does the creation story of the Kushitic begin?
The Kushitic people, the story is similar to that of every myth. You know, it begins. Can you give me a minute?
No problem. Yeah, take your time. Okay. Okay, guys, please don't forget to share with your friends. This is a really important topic. We're gonna go deep. Like, I've got some deep questions to ask, really important questions that a lot of people, I feel like they need to know. This is the Kushitic mythology and like everything to do with Kushitic people, the Somali origin, pre-Islamic, and all that stuff. So share with your friends and share who you know. Let everybody come through, inshallah. Okay. All right. So it was since every civilization had a creation story, how does the creation story of the Kushitic myth begin? You know, in the Kushitic mythology. Yeah,
and it's like just like a normal the way it goes. Every nation in the mythology, you realize they were the primary people. God was a personal God, or community God. That is, in the myth of God, worked the creator of the universe and the originator of all that existed in it. It says that he created everything, but he created the universe, but he lived outside the seen universe. That is, if you heard about if he asked in the Somali language, if is the scene, what you can see in the universe. He lived outside that. He created the universe. When he created the earth and the sky, he created Naf. That is the living element in the air. in the earthly air. He put enough in the earthly air and left it inert. He left it like that.
Okay.
All the lights were in the skies, and and the earth was completely dark. Then Waka made a pee hole. He made a pee hole in the lowest level of the skies to let light pass from the heaven to earth. With the light, yeah, that is the sun. Now they're talking about they thought that the sun was a pee hole where the light of the skies came to the earth.
Okay.
A pee hole through which a pee hole through which God was watching his people. That is what they thought. And to let light to the heaven. And then when the light and the nuff that he created met, the nuff was activated now. The nuff, that is life that he created in the dark earth, when it met with the light and it was activated, God allowed life on earth. That is the way he allowed life on earth. And then that was how he created life on earth. That is the plants, the trees, the rest of the animals, all those stuff. Human-like creation now, creating people like us. He went through, they say, 3 trials. Okay. There were generation of giants. 3 trials, generation of giants. The first was abnormally big creatures called Yahabur in Somali, or in the myth. Yahabur. The Yahabur were too big for the earth. They were so big and extremely big and tall. The average individual of the Yahabur, they say, could drink from the rain clouds before it even rained. He could drink from the clouds. That was how it was. As a result, they ate everything on earth. With nothing left to eat, they perished that way. They cleared the earth of anything that they could eat. Then God tried with the second generation. The second generation were not as huge as the Yahabur, but still giants. They were Yumayuk. Now, for example, to prove to you that this is a living language, Yumayuk in the current Somali, in the modern day Somali, means a big, or big in quantity or quality. Big in quantity, the biggest in quantity or quality. Yeah, that is what it means in the current Somali. So the second generation he created was Yuma and Yug. The Yug were were gluttonous. That is, they will be destroyed by their gluttony at the end of the day. They ate and ate and ate. They had that desire to eat, which was unstoppable.
They were huge.
And they were huge. So they died eating. All
right. So I'm just gonna reevaluate this. I'm gonna tell people there are new people joining. We're talking about the Kushitic mythology of creation. Now we are at the stage of what you call it, giants. So this is when God or Waq decided to create giants on earth. So that's where I'm gonna stop, inshallah. Okay, sister.
So they were the Yuma and Yug were extremely gluttonous and spent all their time eating and drinking. The Yug individual ate every edible thing he came across, eating all day and night till his stomach will burst completely, and that way they will die.
Wow.
And then the Yug, that way the Yug overate themselves to extinction. Then the Yuma generation came. That is the second wave of giants. The Yuma were obsessed with sex. They spent all their days and nights doing and engaged in sexual intercourse. That way, they perished. Then from there, were created a more smaller but still giants breed of people. They were the Tigri, Madinle or Madanle, and Erema. They were giants. These giants had a bit of self-restraint where the two other were concerned. They were not gluttonous or they were not obsessed with sex. But there were three now. Tiri, Madanle, or Madinle, the way some of Somalis say, and Erema. The Tiri kept and domesticated camel and goats. Madanle domesticated cattle and were farmers, and domesticated some plants and became farmers. Erema were hunters. The Erema were hunters, and they used the wind, the wind, they currently called the shamal, the West shamal, the northly or northbound winds. They used that wind, and they moved from. They left. They came. They went north until they disappeared. The Erema, that is.
The Erema. Okay, I've got a question for that one later, but okay, go on.
Yeah, the Tiri and Madanle now lived along the Galambay, the eastern side of Galambay, and existed there until they now. We said the Yuma Yug were extinct because of were destroyed because of gluttony and sexual drive. Yahabura were too big for the earth to sustain them. Now Tiri and Madanle fought, and they perished because of fighting among themselves.
So they became extinct because they were fighting among themselves, like civil war.
Yeah, civil war. The land was the Madinle wanted the whole land for cultivation and cattle. The Tiri wanted the whole land for camel and goats. So they could not agree on that until they went to they expel each other from the face of the earth.
And now the Erema have already migrated into some different place while they were hunting.
Yeah, they went north, completely north, because they were following the northbound winds. They were using the north in the hunting world. When you hunt, the wind you always the other animal can sense the hunter. Now you always follow the in such a way that the animal will not sense you. So if the wind is going to northern side, you will always be the north of that animal. Any animal you want to hunt, you will need to go to the north side of that animal to hunt that animal. So they went north and disappeared. We are talking about myth. Most of the things don't make sense, but myth is myth. So myth is myth, I mean. So that generation that followed after that, after the conflict between the Tiri and Madanle, the generation that followed were the Gala and the Gale. Gala, and that is the human beings now, the Astro-Sapiens, the people of the south, the Kushitic. They came from the Kushitic people, the people who was eventually will be given language to speak. All we are talking about Tiri, Madanle, and all this stuff, this giant did not speak. They did not have that power.
So going a little bit back, I wanted to know about the if that you talked about when God created, or when what created. Does that mean light, or it means something else? Because in the biblical, in the Bible, or maybe in the Abrahamic religions, it said that God created light. He said, "Let there be light." I mean, of Somali, in the Somali language today, when we say if, we're talking about light. Like there is no if without light.
Yeah. The if, it is the light we are talking about, because we are talking about the visible universe, whatever can be seen, and you cannot see anything without light. That is
exactly.
in the Somali. if we have if I akharo, so if
Yep,
I ask,
you're right. If he
if
asks,
I
أخرف
ask,
Arabic word.
yeah. As is when you disappear. If is when you are on earth. So that is that if we are talking about.
So basically, there's a lot of connection, because we've talked about the crow in Abil and Cain, and then we've talked about let there be light, as the scriptures talk about God's creation, and the what's it called, in the Kushitic mythology, they already have this. All right, so now so basically the next question I wanted to add to that is that how did the first, you were already explaining it, but I just want to so you can elaborate more. How did the first Kushitic migration happen? And where did they migrate from, or where did they migrate to? So you were already explaining that, so you could just, inshallah, continue.
When the second generation of people that were Gale and Gala, Gala and Gale, it's like now in the current Somali, in the contemporary Somali, I will say Gela, Gele. You had somebody called Gele. You know a person called Gele, yeah.
One of my teachers in Somalia, his name was Ina Ali Gele.
Gele and Gela. La means the one without camel, and le means leh la in Somali language. You know the difference? La is not having, leh is having. So they were Gala and Gale. This Gala and Gale spoke the same language, believed in the same God. The language they spoke was a language that was revealed to them by God, a language that was inspired. We are talking about 113 or 103 monosyllabus words that they spoke. Okay. Now, these two people, the camel keepers and the cattle keepers will never, or the farmers, camel keepers and the farmers will never agree on anything, up to even the current, the contemporary times. With the cattle, there's always these insects and pests that move with it, that the camel cannot stand, cannot withstand. So what happened is they fought over the land again, fighting for land and water among themselves. Then when people, the intelligent people among the people realized these people are going to kill each other to extinction again, like the TV and Madalle, they did something called, they called, a council was called, according to the myth. They sent among the people, there are people who are believed to communicate to God or to work. They were called Qob Yokumayo.
Okay.
Qob is the person whose prayer God accepts. Kumayo is a woman, a man. Qob is a man whose prayer God accepts. Kumayo is a woman whose prayer God accepts. So these two people, a group of people coming from different clans and tribes were called, and they were told to engage in something called dadab. Dadab. In the contemporary Somali, dadab means nightmares, for example. In the contemporary Somali, but in that time, it meant the way to reach the truth. Dab in Somali is the truth. Dadab is now the way to the truth. It is according to the Greek, they call the Egyptians had this what they call dream incubation. Dream incubation. You heard about that? Dream incubation. No. It's like you sleep for lucid or a clear dream. You sleep with the intention of dreaming about your problem and finding a solution for it within your dream. That was Radab. So they engaged the people who communicated to God.
Is that what the Egyptians believed? The story like Dadab and that.
Dream incubation. That is the way they translated it. But it's exactly the same thing. Sleeping.
Did I use the same word? Did I use the same word as Dadab?
No. Dadab, for example, Dab in Somali means truth up to now. So when you are looking for the truth, you engage in Dadab. For lucid, a dream that will clear will help you solve your problem. So
Okay.
the priest and the prophets and prophetess were asked to engage in Dadab to solve the problem between the conflict between the Gala and the Gale. Now, what
So,
they did is in that Dadab, the first to get revelation or inspiration was a Kumayo called Bet in the myth.
she was she was the first prophetess.
Yeah, who received the message
Okay.
of how to separate, how to resolve the conflict between Gale and Gala. What she did now is she was asked what the resolution for the resolution that she reached. She advised the Gale, the people of the camel, to cross the Galambe to the western side.
So,
They cross the Galambe, that is Electrocana, to the western side. Now that is the first migration of the Gale people from Wakoi, the land of Wak, which starts from Lake Turkana to the Horn of Africa, to the western side of that same Galambe, that is. So they crossed Galambe to the western side, and they were supposed to stay. Now, the way it happened, you are talking about the religion borrowing from each other.
yeah.
In the Hebrew Bible, or in the Christian Bible, or in the Quran, we have this story of Moses crossing the
sea.
the Red Sea. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The same story happens here of but advising her people to cross the Lake Turkana to the western side because of the conflict they had with Gala, that is. Now, what she advises is the most senior Qab of the community will recite will take a stick and pat the water. Okay. Before that, a ritual was to happen. A young lady, that is a young mother, will how do you call it? Will milk her right breast into the water. A young mother will milk her right breast into the water. Then the most senior Qab will come, hit the water with a stick at the spot where the milk pipes.
What's a Qab? What's a Qab?
Qab is a prophet. That is a person who's God accepts his prayers or God communicates to.
Okay, because I've got a question for that one. So the Bedouin people, because I want you to go in details later on, because that's one of the most interesting part of the whole conversation. So I'm just going to ask you, inshallah, the next question, the question number 3, which is, I think you've answered most of it, but I'm just going to see the ones that you haven't answered. So we spoke about the Yamayuk, the giant people. Those were the middle giant people. And then we spoke about the Yahabur, right?
Yahabur,
yeah. And then we've said that the Tiri and the Madale have, like, they went into civil war because they couldn't understand each other, or they couldn't agree on certain customs. And then the question that I wanted to ask, because there's a third one here that says Erema. And you've mentioned that how the Eremas have migrated to the north. So if they're migrating from, did they migrate from Turkana, or they migrated from, modern day Waq region of Somaliland,
and
or Hafun region in Puntland?
No, when you say it was the area of the lake, that is Lake Turkana, around Lake Turkana, that is where they migrated. If they went to north now, it means they went to Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So so the question that follows that, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, it means they went deep into Ethiopia.
Okay.
And they were hunters and gatherers. They did not domesticate animals or do farming. So according to, in that myth of the Kushitic, the myth I'm depending on right now is from the Gabra community, the Gabra myth. According to that myth, they were not seen. They completely disappeared.
Okay, that's what the Gabra people say.
Yeah.
All right. So can we say that, because since we've said that the Erema, I'm really interested in this Erema ones, because in Islam we have the land of Iram, and and the people that used to live there are like Ad and Thamud, and as you mentioned, the Erema were giant people who migrated towards the north. Also, what we find is that southern Yemen has always been connected to Ethiopia and northern Somalia. So also, there are still artifacts that were built by Ad and Thamud, the people of Erema al-Imad, right? So could it be possible that these people, i.e. the Erema, have moved, they went so far into the north and they crossed into Yemen and they've established the Iram city? I'm just a speculation.
Yeah, of course. According to some people I met, and some of them thought that this Erema were Oromos, but that holds no water, because Oromo are Gala. When we talk about Gala, even in our current time, the Gala we call Gala are Oromos. They speak the Gala language. We speak the Gale language. So that doesn't. But if you look at like Ethiopia being the home of the Semitic people, what you call Semites, Semitic speaking people, Ethiopia is the home. That is now, I think, because we have more Semitic languages in Ethiopia than we have in the Middle East.
True.
More Semitic language spoken.
I agree.
Yeah. So if we are talking about Ethiopia being the home of Semitic people, it means these Iramas were the people who started that. And in the myth, myth normally comes with a lot of holes.
True.
All it does, actually, for the people that the myth belongs to, myth does greater than history. It helps them. The mystery around the myth, and people have some part of their brain believing in the myth. So it gives them that pride. It gives them the country. It gives them that belonging to the place. And for the other people who don't belong to that particular community, a myth will always look like a myth, full of holes, full of things to be asked and questions to be raised. So
for me, when I think about mythology, it's just like there is a lot of truth to it, but over time it got exaggerated by people. But the truth within the myth is always there.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Actually, when we talk about history, you realize it is just myth, and renovated myth. That is, I'm using the word renovated deliberately here. Renovated myth. Like all history that you talk about is just renovated myth that is made up in such a way that it looks more reasonable. Our problem is we did not renovate our myth. That's why we have no history. Somalis think that the history started with Islam, and you realize it is even making us unpatriotic in our own land. The generation that we are in don't see themselves as people who belong to that country. For example, when you're in Kenya, there's Garis, there's Wajer, there's Mandera. Okay, all these are Somali words. In the Somali language, they have meaning. But according to the youth in northeastern Kenya, that's NFD now, you will realize they think this land were taken from Oromos just the other day.
Wow.
Okay.
So can you translate the names for us, Garis and Kismaya? What do they mean?
Garis means gag. Ris. Gag means
what is that?
remnant. The smallest thing that remains remnant. Yeah. The smallest thing that will remain in the cup after you drink the water. That is gag. Ris means grass, the green grass. in Somali.
Okay. So there was less grass. Is that what it means? There was less grass in that region.
Whenever there is a drought, Garissa, there is a Tana River. In Somali, it's called Ganana Mare.
So,
Ganana, River Ganana or Ganana Mare. So, and there is now, whenever there is a drought or the dry spell, in the dry spell, when you exhaust all the other places, at the end, people come back to the river, where there is remnant of rice. That is grass, that is green grass, the remnant of pasture. You find it there. So it means the remnant of pasture. Literally, that is what it means. Gag. When you are in the southern side now, in the Wamo, the second G, gag, and kaman bulhan wakilaha wala inan tihli isugu go'on gaagna harin sheegi. Gaagna harin sheegi. Gag, that when you're in Wamo, you drop the second G, the last G, that is gag. Instead of gag, you say ga.
Garissa.
Garis. Garis.
Garis.
The last,
so the sa is just the corrupted word of Garis. The Garissa is a corrupted word of Garis, right?
Yeah, the corruption of Garis. Wajar means wajar means salty water. In Somali, it's wayer. I'm a wayer. 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 The G, instead of pronouncing it Y, pronounce it with J. And J and Y are used interchangeably in languages. So it is wayer. Wayer means salty water. Mandera means Mader, according to the last. It doesn't mean anything to do with tree. It means just Mader. So that is how this works. Then you go to cross the border, go to Garbahari. For it to be a Gale word or a Borana word or an Oromo word, you will have to mispronounce it to Garbahare. But it is Garbahari. Garba means a place, a well, or a place with water. Okay, oasis. Harre means a snake. That is, I think, a big snake, like the cobra. Cobra is that harre in Somali. So the place of water with harre in it. It is understandable. It's Somali, and they will push and continue mispronouncing our towns and cities and places until the only place remaining for us will be Arabia. So what will happen is that narrative now is sold that we belong to another continent. We came just the other day. That is the way the narrative is set. But the
a lot of Somalis say that, which is really, heartbreaking thing to hear people, claim.
Yeah. So the thing is, this land belongs to us, and the people, we were the people there. East Africa, from Lake Turkana to the Horn of Africa, that was our home for 10,000 years. And when we crossed to the western side, went to Sudan, up to Egypt, and the closest language, a living language to the language that the Egyptians spoke, the ancient Egyptians spoke, is Rendile now. The language spoken by the people Rendile, the northern Kenya people of Rendile. The language they speak is almost when you in the way it is, it's close to Somali, but it shows it is way older because, for example, Tin is Somali hair, and for them it's Tim with
the M. Okay.
With the M. When we say the plural of that Tim, we say Tima. We don't say Tina. We say Tima to mean that Timo. The origin was Timo. So, for example, the moon, we call it Dayah. For them, they call it Yayah.
Yayah. Okay.
Yayah. And for the Egyptians, it was Yayah, by the way. And
wow.
The ancient, so this that is the community that is closest, I think, as a language to the ancient Egyptians. So it means these people came from Lake Turkana. They were the Gale, part of the Gale generation that crossed the ocean after civil war, crossed not the ocean, the lake,
the lake,
north, to the western side, then continued. That is why they were so obsessed the Egyptians were obsessed with something called the land of Waq. They talked about it.
Yeah, the land of God. They used to call it.
The land of God. Yeah, Waqoyi, that is now. Waqoyi means the land of God. Then the funny thing is the Egyptian god Ra is basically in everyday words in the Somali language. Go Ra, Qorrah. And you realize it is Qorrah literally means the pee hole of Ra.
Like where I've been getting ready to ask you. So if you could go as much details as possible, because I want to ask you the cultural and the religious foundation of the Bed generation. So we want to talk about God, prophets, priests, and their religious laws. So their God, their prophets, their priests, their religious laws, and the system which they laid out as a civilization and as a starting civilization. So yeah, because I want you to evaluate on that one a little bit more, please. Thank you.
Yeah, in the Waqiyah faith, people were like divided into, and the priestly class, that is Siwak, the soldier class, that is the Jidwak. Jid means the way. Waq means God. These are the enforcers of the law. The Siwak class created the laws. The Jidwak class enforced the laws. And the Darre class were the commoners. Now, Darre class were the commoners, normal people. People were like that. Actually, what we'll find out is all our names, the names, even the one we have now, it has nothing to do with blood. If you look at it closely, Somal means it's a livelihood-oriented class or classification of people. Some were called Biamal, Tumal, Somal. Somal were the livestock people, Biamal were the farmers, and Tumal were the craft people with the skills and the craft to make tools and stuff like that. So even at that time, there's nothing. The clan system we have today is mostly based on political unions. It is like alliances that were built.
That'll be my last question before.
Yeah.
Before we
so
move on.
even before, from the start up to the time we are, our names or the names we take for the clans and the tribes and the stuff like that are mostly livelihood oriented. So we had Siwak class that created the laws. Those were the priests. Then the Jitwak class that enforced the law. Then the Darre, who are the common people. So that was the way it started. Then the base of the whole faith was Gardarro. Ama Garra iyo Gurra. Garra iyo Gurra. Garra means the right side of Ra, that is the God. Gurra means the left side or the wrong side of God. So that was the whole thing. This idea, the philosophy of justice was based on Gartayale. Gartayale. Before Gartayale, it started as a simple thing, a daily thing.
What does it mean, Gartayale?
Darkayale. When you bring your camel to the well for watering, there is that dar. You know the trough. The trough that is used to feed the camel or to water the camel. Okay, it is next to the well. So that dar come, it is first come, first serve. So when your camels are over, when your stock are over, and you watered them, the second person, who is the next? The question will be Darka Yale. Darka Yale. At this particular time, it should go to who should water the animals right now. So the whole idea was based on that. Darka Yale graduated after sophistication, a bit of sophistication reached with the religion and the inspiration that they received according to the myth from work. It graduated to Garta Yale. Garta Yale. And that gar should be given to the person who deserves it. That is all. That is why you hear about Garsor. Garsor is implementing justice or making sure justice for the right people. Okay, when somebody is wrong, Garsor, that is the person who divides the gar to the person it belongs to, or taking it from the person it doesn't belong to. So the whole thing was based on that simple thing. The spirituality was not that much. They were more secular. They were very spiritual people, but they were more secular in their outlook to life. The way they were looking at life, they were more secular. That is the way they separated their religion from. The religion was a bit more of like personal thing.
Okay, so what can you tell us about the priests and the prophets?
Yeah, that was
like basically you talked about the spiritual path they took, like dreaming, prophetizing. Yeah. For example, you talked about Humayo, right? That's a prophetess. If you could just elaborate on what Humayo and what the other one I forgot the name. Is it Qop? If you could just explain those two. Yeah, Qop and Humayo, what they actually do.
In the present time dictionary, in the Somali dictionary, the present time Somali dictionary, Qop is waqaf a du'adiisa kacdo.
Okay, a person
whose prayer is accepted.
Okay.
In the present time, and the way we in the normal in the average dictionary, you'll find Qab to be somebody whose prayer is accepted. Umayyo, because of the misogyny that was planted in the community, Umayyo is now seen as something negative. But when you look at
I wonder,
when you look at it positively, apart from it being a woman, being pushed to the side because it's a woman or she's a woman, you will realize what we are talking about is somebody whose prayer was accepted. For example, if I am Umayyo, I'm a Umay in the Somali, in the present day Somali. If I am Umay, but Hawar is just a negative du'a.
It is, true.
Yeah. She's not doing the thing. If I curse you and the curse affects you, it doesn't. It means God accepted my curse.
True.
So it means this is a person who has a link with God, a link that can affect the other people. It's a person who can pray to God, and God will accept their prayer. So that one tells you now, and it tells you beside the do away with the if you do away with the misogyny and stuff like that. Umaya and Qoba the same thing. People whose prayer are accepted. That is what they are. Now, Qoba and Umayya were not like the active prophet that we have in the Abrahamic faith. The active in the sense that they are more passive. There are people who you go to when you are in problems. Okay, and when you go to a person for enlightenment or for advice or for counseling or talk, you go to them for that. It means they are a bit, and they don't preach something. There's nothing. There's not a cut. It was granted that God is there, that this is the religion, The rules were so open-ended. The rules that is the so open-ended. So people went to them for advice, for religious advice, for prayers. So they were like not these active prophets that we have in the Abrahamic religion. People who change the people, who talk to the people, who dictate to the people. They were not like that. They were like more passive, like monk-like individuals. Who people went to them for advice and for enlightenment. That is what they were. Whenever
Okay.
there is a problem, that is when they were called upon to come and solve the problem.
The Kop and the Kumaya.
Yeah.
Okay. Yesterday, when you were doing the live with Mizan Avenue, you've touched on a really important subject. When you said when the elder asked you about that why do we have to associate goodness with the black crow? Because you know the crow is bad, is black, and you said something about how to me I got it as black is sacred, basically. Because you know, Somali, you talked about the Biyumado and all. Can you elaborate on that, please? Because there are people that
Yeah.
I want to
The,
go on.
there's when our religion comes, it comes with its culture.
So,
Sometimes it has nothing to do with the religion.
so,
For example, you know, people behave like people don't have emotions. That is the same things I was talking about history.
yeah.
When you say somebody, when you say a Greek historian say this about this village, for example, and you portray it to be this man's emotions were never involved, you know, in what he said. This person's tiredness was never involved. This person's hatred for black skins were never involved. You know, you make the person to be completely objective. That is a crazy way of looking at life. When you take religion to, for example, today you want to preach what you believe to other people.
So,
What you believe about those people, individual believe about those people, will go with that faith, because you are still a human being. You have feelings, you have emotions, you have biases, you have prejudice. All those things are within you. So the only way to deal with this is, whenever we talk about these things, I'm saying this because whenever you talk about these things, people will jump to conclusion that you are attacking Islam, okay, or you are anti-Islam or anti-Muslim. But you have to be sober and look at it the way it is. Islam came to Africa, we accepted it. When we accepted it, we accepted also the Arabic notion of blackness, the Arabian notion of blackness, which was based on total hatred, because we were the immediate neighbors of the Arabs. Black people were. We fought like there is a whole dynasty of black colonizing Arabia, of black people colonizing Arabia. The last of it was Abraham from Ethiopia too. So these people did not like black people. They did not love black people. They had their own ideas about black people. And as conquerors, as the Satan himself. For example, today, when you are in the Middle East or in the Islamic world, the notion you will have about America, that kind of notion, or the Western world, that average person notion of if now religion, if now you export religion from East Africa and you bring it to the Western world, that notion will be also within you. You will be carrying that prejudice that you have about these people. So that is when we accepted Islam, we did not separate that notion and prejudice of those people that Islam reached us from the real religion. So in the midst, the mix of this whole thing came this hatred for blackness, slowly introduced. And I remember I was in school, Adadi, the first year of Thanawi. That is first year of Thanawi. When I heard about the hadith that the Prophet allowed kites and scorpions and the crows and what was something else? I think those are the things that you can kill in the haram.
Okay.
The haram in the area of Makkah. There are things you cannot kill anything, and most things you cannot kill, but there are things that are allowed to be killed. That is there. When you talk about the kites, you know what kites are. They are what the
Okay. So,
they attack people. They snatch things from your hand. I can excuse that. I can justify that. I can justify killing scorpion or pafada or vipers. I can talk about killing snakes because they are poisonous. But why should you kill a black crow? It is in the list. So I remember asking the teacher, why should this be killed? This crow is here in Garissa. It does nobody no harm. Then he told me he did not answer the question. He went around it, that it was ugly, it was noisy, it was stuff like that. So the point is, you will realize the hatred for black dogs, black cats. This was not it was an extension of hating the black people.
Or people with dark skin. So when we're talking about black, we're talking about like it could be anybody with dark skin, whether they are Indian, Arab, Kushitic, or any other African.
I'm talking about the Arab side, in the Arab mind.
Because when we say Arab, because Arabs cannot hate black in some way, we're talking about later Arabs, like Arab al-Musta'ariba, maybe those.
Even in the Arabian of that time, in the Arabia of the Prophet time, black were not color, as the black color wasn't something loved.
Okay.
And it is normal. Look, when you live with people, when you are neighbors, you are allowed to have your prejudice against them. Okay. When you belong to a certain nation, you can keep your prejudice against other people, so long as that prejudice doesn't include entitlement to kill, or harass or enslave. Okay. And now in a society, every society in the world, every society, even a society as modern or as liberated as the one we live in now, and there are notions and prejudice against people who don't look like them. Okay. People who don't have the same color they have, don't speak the language the way they speak, don't twist the tongue the way they do. This is a normal thing, a human thing. Human normally survive by differentiating themselves from the rest of the people. That is the only way we survive. So that being the case, there was a notion and prejudice against black things, including people, in Arabia. Now, when Islam came to us, we did not sieve these notions from the religion itself. We picked the whole thing. So that is why you see, I excuse the Sheikh saying, so bahalka maxaa la jiray tukaha madowgiisa iyo when madow, so negative ma aha. But for Somalis, ancient Somalis, negative, black wasn't negative. It was their color, so they could not call it negative. But the black crow was a sacred bird that even like the Caucasian or Indo-European idea of angels is a person of pink skins, color like theirs, white or pink.
Just to add to that, I was watching this film. It's about the history of the Vikings, and it shows there's a lot of crows or ravens being demonstrated as spiritual birds. And every time something bad, or if they expect a prophecy, they would wait for the crows to crow in a certain way, or when the sky changes, they would depend on the crows to show them signs. So still we see a lot of, you know, the crow everywhere, you know what I mean? Like there's always this crow being mentioned. Even, you know, there's a lot of things that wallahi, but go on, sorry I interrupted. I just wanted to say that bit. So
Yeah.
you're saying
So
about the Aryans.
yeah, when the image of Jesus, the image of angels is
Mm,
a person, a being that looks like them.
mm,
And that because that is the way human mind thinks.
صح.
If you tell just you bring somebody from a complete vacuum, let's say, and brought
Mm,
them to earth, and you ask them how, and you introduce the idea of God in their mind, and ask them if they how God looks like, okay, and you give them a pencil and a paper, they will draw
mm.
somebody who looks like them. That's
True.
normal. And if you ask for Satan or Shaitan, he will draw somebody who looks like the people he doesn't like, or those
Mm,
that he doesn't like. That's normal. So uncolonized and uncolonized, free Kushite people, Kushitic people, Kushitic speaking people, thought God was black, thought black was holy, and did not have this connotation for blackness associated with evil and bad things. So in the Somali language, when you look at it, you'll realize black is everything black is beautiful. The way I was saying, when you want to say clear water in Somali,
yeah, Sugwahir. Someone said Sabrin they we don't draw Allah. Basically, in cawsgurow, Allah, it's not talking about we drawing Allah, but it's talking about the during the Waq era, when they would, if you would ask them what did God or what Waq look like, they would depict him as one of them. Like they would depict him as a dark skinned dude or something. You know what I mean? He would look like them. So as we are Muslims today, of course, we don't draw Allah. We don't have, like, we don't do anything to do drawing Allah and drawing images and worshiping idols. We don't do that. But we're talking about ancient history. Well, I go on.
so and when we talk about where we are saying about the idea of black wasn't as black as it is now. That is what I mean.
Mm,
And when you say like I want clear water, the
mm,
clear water, the cleanest water, in
mm.
Somali you say biyamadu isi.
Biyamado. Wow.
I
So,
pass by you and you did not offer me a glass of water, leave alone tea or anything else. When I come to my house, I say, Niki mention I mean clear water, the drinkable water. So that is the point. Like, black was not as negative as it is now. So
so,
these people, the people of Waqiya and the land of Waq did not. The point is they had in mind something that is theirs, something that wasn't brought from anywhere else. So when Islam came from another culture. It
true.
brought the prejudice from that other culture with it to Africa. Now that is where we pick this self-hating concept, where you see somebody and cannot even stand the color of their own skin. And I'm
So,
not saying, and I see people are a bit ticklish around this topic. I'm not saying, Islam brought that racism to us. No, what we are talking about is people have their prejudice when even the one who is spreading the religion has his own prejudice. So the prejudice cannot be separated from the objective truth that he preached. So that is the way I think this black hating idea came to us.
okay. Sabrin, Islam is a universal religion. It's not from our culture. No, basically what he said was, what Badwaq said was, when Islam was coming to us, the people who carried the deen brought in, like, they didn't just bring the deen, they had their culture with them. And we didn't just take their deen, we took their culture with it. So but please make sure you follow, you know, what the person is saying before you rush to conclusions. All right. Now the Gumes. I wanted to know about the Gumes. You said the Gumes, or the owl, because today in the Western world, the owl is seen as a wise bird. But as you've mentioned in the previous interview, that the Gumes is associated with the devil or with Shaitan. So could you
Yeah,
could
it
you
was
elaborate on that in the Waq myth, in the Waq mythology and Waq religion?
in the work mythology. There were two things: Gumes and the Tuke were in the
So,
heaven.
okay.
And now, what happened was, according to the myth, Gumes borrowed the plumage, the black plumage of the crow to attack squirrels. Okay, to
Okay.
attack the flying squirrels. That is Fidmer in the
Feedmer.
heaven. Yeah,
Okay.
in the heavens. Now,
Feedmer isn't that the bats?
yeah,
Kabile
yeah,
the Soma.
yeah.
Okay.
It used it hid behind the crow. Crow was harmless to that thing, the flying squirrels, and the what the Gumes tricked him into, and what the Gumes wanted was to kill these squirrels. What it did now was it used the color and the image of of the crow to attack. So their work was annoyed with these two bad. One for her evil intention and actions. Another for naivety. The crow for being naive to the extent that its color was borrowed. So he sent them to Earth as representative on Earth, as representative of Jafalile, the Satan, and Baale, the angels. The one that represents the Baale is the crow. The one representing the Jafalile is the owl. So that is the way it was said in the myth. So instead of God kicking out Eve and Adam from heaven, in this mythology, what was kicked out was crow and Gumes.
Okay. Crow and Gumes.
Mm.
So what impact did the crow and Gumes have on the planet or in the Kushitic mythology?
Mythology and that crow is a sacred bird, and the owl is the manifestation of all evils.
Okay.
Yeah, it is the devil image on earth. That is what they believe.
All right. Okay. The next question. Now we're moving. We got two more questions left, inshallah. But jumla way.
Mm.
All right. Is there any similarities between the Abrahamic religions and the ancient Cushitic religions? Also, can we say that the Abrahamic religion is an updated version of the continuation of the Waq faith?
And when you look at the work in mythology and the current the living religion, that the Waqiya religion, and people practice it, you'll realize there is very little difference. First,
Okay.
that the Waqiya, what they believe is Waq or Ra, who lives in the heavens, who has a special attention for his people, that is people on earth, and the idea of Gardarro being the main thing he concerns himself with, that is justice and injustice, being the main thing he concerns himself with among people, the idea of him standing with those that are wronged, and standing against the wrongdoers. That is the whole idea that the thing was based on. And when you look at Islam and Christianity and Judaism, you'll realize that it's the same thing. When you do away with the nitty gritty and the details, you'll realize the whole idea is justice and that connection with God. In spiritual connection with God Himself. That is what they believe in. And when you look at the rites and the rituals, the Waqiya practiced pray 4 times a day.
So they pray 4 times a day. Okay.
They pray 4 times a day.
That's interesting. Muslims pray 5 times a day.
5 times a day. Waqiya pray, and their prayer is around the stock. That is the livestock that they keep. For example, gela kolku darera subhi. After the girl is sent for pasture, they pray for the girl. In the mid-morning, they pray around duha time. They pray for the girl again, for the animals and the kids that are looking after the animals, all the stuff. Then asar, before the kids leave, older people, or the adults leave for the girl now to bring it home. Okay, asar, that is around asar time. They also pray. They come together at the nabo, and incidentally, nabo is where the crow roosts in Somali, or in Kushitics. That is where the crow roost is. We call nabo, and also the nest of the crow. That is nabo. The place we pray also called nabo. That is, you can see the connection with Tuka all along. So at the evening now, when they are going to return the camel back home, they also pray together. Then they go. It is returned home around midnight or before midnight. Then they pray again, thanking God for the camel coming back home. So when you look at it, you'll realize this is life-based and daily life-based religion that keeps remembering work all along the day, and praying and praising and thanking Him. And basically, when you look at Islam, and when you remove the routine from the prayer, you remove the routine and the prayer being, something done for God aspect of it, you realize it is something you are doing for yourself. Exercise that you carry out to keep you around your routine and your life and stuff like that. What you
also
pray
spiritually,
for,
even spiritually, something that you're doing it for yourself, because Allah says whether you pray to me or not, it's just good for you. It's not for me, it's for you.
True. The communal side of it, the social side of it, people coming together praying is actually sometimes more beneficial to the community because humans, one thing we know is we cannot survive as individuals. We can survive only as a community. So anything that brings that community together is positive for that community. So in the Waqiya, you'll realize it is a link between families and making them into a society. And Islam, basically, that is why prayer is fard and mandatory to perform it in congregation.
Okay, in communion. Okay. Now, before I move on to this to the second last question, I was going to ask you because I just remembered this one. Yesterday, you've talked about the sides of God, where you had the gurra. You've mentioned it right now, but could you give it a little bit more detail of the bad side of God and the good side of God, and according to the Kushitic or the Welsh mythology?
Yeah, it is like gurra ya garra. Gar means the right side of God. Of the body. Gar as a word.
Okay.
Gur means the wrong side of the body. For the hands, and the contemporary Somalis normally say gur to be the left hand. For the case of the meat, gur is not the left hand. The left hand is bidih, ama bifdih. The one to wash, the one to use to wash the dirt with. The midig is ma'anyig, the one to use to eat. That is what it literally means. So besides, now the side of the body is gar iyo gur. Now gar is the truth, which means the right side of Ra. Ra is the God now, the ancient Wak. It has many names. Among his names is Ra. The right side of Ra. Gurra meant the wrong side of and even in the contemporary Somali language, Gurra up to now means the wrong. When you want to say wa gurra'an yahay, hebel wa gurra'an yahay, wa khaldan yahay wa. Hebel gurra means the wrong side. Gurra, when you realize the left side of God.
Can we translate gurra as the wrath of God or the anger of God?
No, it is literally, it means exactly that is eventually what it will mean, but here it means it is the wrong side of God. Whenever you are doing something that doesn't please God, you are in gurra, you are in the wrong side of God. That is the wrong hand of God, you are in the left side of God. That is when you are right, you are
sinning.
in the right side. Sinning, that is exactly what gurra means.
Okay. All right. Last question on the gurra. I think his name is Ayamwile. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. His name is Hassan Anyamwile. He asked whether Ra or Ra are the same. You know, the sun god of Ra, the Egyptian sun god, and the Ra of the Somali god. Is it also, or the Kushitic god of Ra and Ra, are they the same deity?
Yeah, they're the same. They're the same because these languages are related. You know, like we come from Afro-Asiatic, and like Turkana being the home of all humanity. When people left, they left with the names of their deities to far north and far south, and in the process, I think Egyptians spoke a language similar to ours, very similar to the Rendile language. So I think it means the same thing. But Ra in Somali, you will find it in almost all religious things. For example, when you are slaughtering in Somali, it's go ya Ra, go ya Ra. Let's go Ra. Ra is the god that you do for. Cutting for Ra. That is why when you are slaughtering in the name of Ra. That is and the Gurra and Garra. And Alhamdulillah. When you look at it, you'll realize the Ra and then the letters before Ra, Ra with the apostrophe. That apostrophe came about inability to pronounce ha and a, which came from the Greek now. Greek, the conveyors or the people who conveyed the Egyptian civilization to the Western world and could not pronounce a, ha. So if it was ra, they must have pronounced it as ra with an apostrophe to take the place of ain or ha. And for example, the Rendile community I'm talking about normally uses interchangeably ra and a. One time he will tell you qarrah, the next he will tell you barra. Qura. They come from the same place, so
same
they
root.
Use it
Okay. All right. Now these are the last few questions left. Basically, the question I wanted to ask you, in the first, because we spoke about Swahili and Bantu quite a while ago. So there were two Cushitic migrations. There was the Cushitic migration, which was the Proto-Cushitic. The first time they migrated to North Africa and Egypt. So the question, actually, this is a two questions, so I'm going to split into two. So it's one question, but I'm going to split into two. So the first question is, when they migrated to African Egypt and they settled along the Nile, were they the first settlers in those regions, or there were already other indigenous tribes living there, like the Sudanic tribes? Were they the first settlers to go to occupy the Nile region in Egypt, or they were already indigenous tribes living there before the Cushitics?
Yeah, and you have to realize by the time they are leaving Egypt, the first migration of the Proto-Cushitic speaking people to leave Galambay to go north, north toward north. They were leaving from that point. They were going northwest until they met the Nile. At that time, the first migration, they say, there wasn't Sahara Desert was not there. It was a tropical forest instead.
So, okay, cool. So,
It was a tropical forest because of the sense that normally because of the Earth and its position to the sun, 20,000 years, it is a tropical forest. 20,000 years, it is desert, the Sahara Desert where we have now. So now we are in the first 5 years, 5,000 years of the time we are yet to. It is the first 5 years of the time it is desert. Okay, we are waiting. We have to go through another 15,000 years for it to become what these people met when they left Lake Turkana and went to that side of Sudan up to Egypt now.
Because the ones who left, they were camel herders. They needed their livestock to graze, so they had to go to the lush land. So
yeah. So and I think the idea that the myth, when we're talking about myth, every community thinks they are the origin of humanity, that they are the roots and the branches are the rest. So the idea was the notion, the mythology gives is when these people left from the Turkana to far north, they were the first people to go there. But
who were the first to go there again? Sorry.
When they left Glambay, that is the Lake Grey, to further north, the idea that the myth gives is these were the original people, the first people to live. That the idea is all humanity came from that place, and according to that myth is the rest of the people will come from this community that migrated from the lake to north side. Even the southern Kushitic, these people now living in Kilimanjaro among the Bantus. Still, these were the first lot of people to leave Lake Turkana, Lake Turkana to the north. That is the idea it is given. But I don't know. They must have met other people. I don't know. And according to the myth, they are portrayed as they were the first people to move out of the original home of humankind.
Okay. So if the original home of the humankind was Lake Turkana, can we say that in Lake Turkana, it wasn't just the Cushitics who inhabited in that, or?
No, the Cushitic believes they were the origin of all humanity. Even the
that's what they, okay.
That is what they believe. They were they believe that their language was that those few words, 1,103 words that were revealed from God, inspired by God to humans. Those they believe those were the first few words ever spoken. So they were the original human beings. That is what they believe. What they believe.
All right. One question that arises from that is, in modern time, when you look at the Cushitic people, they look distinctively different by a phenotype, by a look and everything. So, and other people who have no relation with the Cushitic, other Africans, are very distinguishable from the Cushitic people. So, what do you think that could be? I mean, we're just talking about mythology and oral history. So, if you could just elaborate on that.
Yeah, and for example, the idea I have about the people I met, old people, old Africans, people with history or understanding of their cultures, is you cannot even put together the Bantus as one group. For example, the Eastern Bantus, the Mijikendas. Mijikenda, in their myth and in their oral culture or oral history, and came from Ethiopia. Griama say
Okay.
they came from Ethiopia. What you will realize here is people are moving from one place to another, mixing up, marrying from each other, and myth is supposed to have that holes in it to give room to all people to that pride and claiming to be the original people. You know,
True.
that is the truth about the good thing about mythology is it gives everybody roots, and it gives them that existence, the holier than thou existence, that I was the original person and you are the branches that came from there. So you cannot use the mythology to decide what was what or who was first. But the point of talking about this mythology and researching and doing this is myth has this strength to make people belong. That it has this strange strength to help people realize where they belong to. What history cannot do, the current or recorded history cannot do that. Myth normally, whole of Kenyan, the country Kenya, you realize the people who claim today to be Kenyans, okay, more than the rest, are people who just reclaim their myth, who just accepted their myth and to be coming to from particular place in Kenya. So that is how the only way people can belong to their land is reviving their myth and talking about them. Nobody believes in myth and nobody disbelieves in myth. Deep inside you, there is an aspect of you that always believes in the myth. And that is managing the faith, the managing your doubts that makes the how you manage your doubts and your faith. That is what makes you a better person who can relate with other people. But basically, I think the reason we are reviving this, discussing, studying, writing about it, is to give a sense of belonging to the people, people who belong to Africa and belong to East Africa and belong to that large, vast land. And today, currently, they look like refugees everywhere they go. So the idea is to go back to the myth, go back to the past, to save the young generation of this not belonging anywhere in the world idea, saving them from that. That's what we are, why we are doing this.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, I understand. So basically, according to the Mitigenda, they are the original people. According, like mythological wise, according to
Yeah,
every tribe in Africa, they are the original people, and it
original.
gives them that empowerment.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get. I understand. I
yeah.
understand. Okay. Now the other question is, I think we've answered this one. Because like you said, because I was going to ask you, what's the connection? Okay, what connection did the Kushitic people have with the ancient Arabs, i.e., Arab al-Ba'ida, and
Mhm.
the Arab al-Ariba, who are the Sabi'in? Because when we look at the Sabi'in history, the Sabi'in kingdom consisted of southern Yemen and Ethiopia, and
Mhm.
always Ethiopia and South Yemen, and also South Yemen are considered to be the original Arabs. So you've already talked about this, but for those people who joined later on, can you just tell them what the possible connection could be orally, if you're speaking about oral history?
And the only sensible thing to say about Arabs and the Jews and the Assyrians and those people in the 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 current Middle East is an original. When you look at whenever you want to know to establish the origin of a particular community or a language group or a language family, you will consider where that language is spoken more. We have Semitic language, Sami, this language is spoken more in Ethiopia than it is in Middle East.
Yes, yeah, you've mentioned
So
that. Yeah,
that was
100%.
where Arabs came from. That is where Jews came from. That is where the same area. When you talk about Afro-Asiatic languages, you'll
Yeah, it
find
comes from Ethiopia. That's a fact history.
the Horn of Africa is the origin of Afro-Asiatic languages. So, and we are older in that sense, since we are at the place where this thing originated from, proven by the languages spoken there, linguals and people speaking them. The point is
Yeah.
now that is where that is where we originated from. That is where we.
Excuse me. Sir, can you keep it down, please? Thank you. Sorry, dad baa ku qoslaya inay iga hadlayaan maran. Go on.
And the point is, Ethiopia has the most Afro-Asiatic languages spoken by any people, any group of people, more than not only Ethiopia. We're talking about the Horn of Africa. Then that will be the home of the Semites, the home of the Kushites, the home of the Kushites, and any other language that is related to these Semite Kushite languages. That will be the home of all that. So I mean, the relationship we'll have is once we come from one language group, it means we are related. At least when that language was formulated or formed, when that language was spoken first, we were together. So it means they all left the Horn of Africa to the rest of the world. That is the way I see it personally. Seeing ourselves, the point is everything that currently in the world points to we were the origin. Okay, points to Lake Turkana, to the Horn of Africa. That is the land of gods. That is Wakoi. That is where this thing happened. For example, Abrahamic religion, besides the Gar and Gur thing that we share, that is the base of the whole religion, we have Gudmin, circumcision. Okay, circumcision. And the father of this Abrahamic faith is Abraham himself. Abraham himself was circumcised, or he circumcised himself in an advanced age, around 80. He was around 80 when he circumcised himself. And the point is, when he was circumcising himself, it is said, and what led him to circumcise was because of the girl, the Hagar, the lady he married from, the maid he took from Egypt, later married as a wife, the mother of Ismail. He circumcised himself because of her, because she refused to engage him sexually until he does what her people do. That is the Kushitic people of Egypt. They circumcise themselves. So until he does that, he refused to engage to sleep with him. That is how he changed, and it's now basis. It's a right in a basic right in the Abrahamic faith. It's Abrahamic faith.
Yeah.
So
it is,
what when you come from that point, that kind of mythology, the idea is now this influence that we have on that the Waqiya faith had on Abrahamic and the religion, the way it came back it came back, Islam, when it came back to Africa, the Somalis looked at it. They were having Waqiya. They realized this religion was so similar, so like theirs, and it came from the right side. That is Wakoi, the side of God, the right side. We were talking about yesterday, Kusin and Kasin, and the philosophy that surrounds it. Kusin
if you could elaborate on that one, it's really interesting.
Kusin means the right side of the sun. It's the south. The south is the right side of the sun, according to the Waqiya. Kasin is the north side of the sun. Kasin means the negative side of the sun. So it meant and south and north. Now we call our Somali, our contemporary Somali, we call south, we call Kofur. That's the name of a star. That is a star also called the Boji star. That is the Kushitic star. And the north we call Wakoi. It's a corruption of Wakoi. Mispronunciation of Wakoi. Wakoi means the land of Wak. Some people in the south call north Tuket. Tuket, it means the side of the Tuket, the bird, or the side to which we pray. However you take it. So it means, this means now, this meant the wrong side of the sun or the right side of the sun meant for livelihood, for you to prosper life in the world. The more south you went, the richer you got. According to the astrology, the more south, the more north you went, the more religious you got. So that is the excuse. Well, why they made it an excuse to stay in middle. I mean, in East Africa, in the Horn of Africa, claiming that this was the middle of the world. You are between God and prosperity. Okay, and that one, the sign for that they picked from the animals. For example, the camel in Hargeisa and in the northern side, in the Horn. When you look at them currently, you will realize the camel of the north of the south is bigger always. Gela wuxooyi markaad fiirisa koonfur jooga wuxuu nirgu u muuqan ka waqooyi nirgu u muuqan. When you compare the camel of the Arabs and that of the Somali camel is bigger.
It's bigger.
The more you go, when you compare the Indian elephant to African elephant, the African elephant is bigger. And the more you go to the south, the bigger it gets. It's the same for the buffaloes, the rhinos, the lions, all these other animals. So from that, they picked the idea that this was the positive side of the sun. For prosperity in this life, the more south you go, the richer you get. Or the more prosperous you get. But the north was now the side of God. The more close you remain to Tukat, the more godly you will be, or more close to God you will be. The more closer you are to Tukat. So from that, that is what made them stay from the Horn of Africa to River Tana in Kenya, and stay between there, migrating from one point to another until they reach there, then they come back. So that is what kept them there. The idea to remain between the prosperity and the godliness, to stay in that middle ground where they can get both. That is the same. We can use this same logic. Why the Egyptians were obsessed with the land of work or the land of God,
the land of Bunt.
Yeah, they were obsessed with it and yearning for it and talking about it, writing about it, traveling to it and going back. And that is the same idea what kept the Cushitic speaking tribes to remain between River Tana and Horn of Africa. Or the farthest they went to is Tanzania and Lake Kilimanjaro, in the area of the Kilimanjaro, where we have some Cushitic tribes.
Wow, that's very interesting.
And to add on that, the name even Kushites comes from Kusin. Kusin is south, the ancient word for south, Kusin. So we are the proto what you call astro sapiens. That is the people of the south. People of the south. That was what the name Kushites meant.
Wow. Okay, that's very interesting. So someone asked, wait, I think the question scrolled way up, but they asked, what connections do the Cushitic people have with Egypt?
And the Cushitic people are the origin, in this case.
Ancient. Okay.
It was along Lake Turkana or Galambay, where the idea of seven days a week, 12 months, 7 days a week, 12 months a year were first conceived.
Oh wow! Can you elaborate on that one? That's interesting.
yeah, and they said, according to the myth, the 7 days a week was borrowed from the Tuka again. The Somali crow can count to 7.
Mm.
Can count to 7. They say 7. That is the number of weeks in a day, and I mean the number of days in a week. That is where they borrowed that from. And the other thing is 12 months still based on that, and that is what the Egyptian civilization made peculiar, the Egyptian civilization. So since this is where these things, this idea were conceived, you can say this was the origin of. And when you compare, for example, ancient Egypt and even the few original words of Somali that you know, what do you call the number of between the Rendile people and the Egyptian civilization, the word that they spoke, and the current and the living language of the Rendile people, you'll realize there's a lot of connection. So the idea is Lake Turkana was the origin. People migrated from Lake Turkana northward, or north to the northern side, until they reached Egypt. That is where that is where they reached the civilization and became the ancient Egyptians that we are talking about.
Interesting. Last question. So how I love question was like these are two composed questions, but I'll try to make them. It relates to the Bantu story and all of this. So basically, you've already answered it, but I just want to go deeper into it. It goes. You've mentioned how we have a link in your previous interview. You've mentioned how we have a lingo relation with the Swahili language, and the Swahili language is a Bantu or Bajuni language. What connections do we as Kushitic people have with the Bantu? That's the first question. The second one is also, to add to that, in history, we learned that during the second migration of the Kushitic people from North Africa, because the first time they migrated to the north and then they came back eventually after the collapse of Egypt, or even way before that, it was about a few thousand years BC. So when these guys came back, the Kushitics, to the Horn of Africa and East Africa, we learned that there was no Bantus in that region. It was only Kushitic speaking people, or Kushitic people who are like well known and their sections and all of that. So where does this connection of Swahili and Kush come to be?
This it's later, like we are talking about 2000 years. When we talk about this is 10,000 years. So when you say 10,000 years, is a long time in history.
It is, yeah.
And normally, since what we depend on is the language and cultural anthropology and who borrowed from whom and stuff like that, what happens is many things will not look as clear as they could look. And what we are talking about, our connection with Swahili is like 2,000 years ago. That is for the Christianity. We met in this land called, and according to the myth, when Somalis, the Gala who crossed the ocean to the south, to the west, across the lake to the west, returned to the Wakoi. They returned as 3 or 4 groups. That is the Somali, the Gabra, the Rendile, the Afar. So when the group that will constitute the Somalis, crossed the ocean to the east side, they moved from there to this to Ganana River Ganana. That is Tana River. They crossed Tana River in the southern side, south toward the area now where Garissa is. Garissa town where it is. Along those areas, they crossed the Tana River. Then they pushed there. They separated with the Boni, and the Boni in the Boni forest, because Boni people in Boni forest, where Boni forest is in Lamu, Kenya. People in Boni forest speak a language that is as old as the language spoken by the Rendile. So they speak almost the same language, the Boni and the Rendile. So that is where now the Somali from Lake Turkana side separated with the Boni. Then they went to along the ocean. Meesha hadda Gosha la dhahaa, this from the border between Kenya and Somalia. And then they met in the area now, this area from Afmadow up. That is where the original Shungwaya, that is where they meet the Mijikendas, the Griamas, the Digos, and the Swahilis. Swahili speaking people, the language that we call Kihenga, or when you talk about the Wahenga themselves, the originators of the Swahili language. That is where they met and lived for close to 1,000 years together. And that is the relationship between the Somalis and the Swahili is not the language. We don't come from the same language group. The Swahili speak Bantu, Somali speak Kushitic or Afro-Asiatic. The only connection we had is that connection of living alongside each other for years, until we shared like deities, even names of God. We had the tricky part is if a foreigner looks at the Somali language and the Kushitic tongue and Kushitic speaking people, their languages, and look at them, he will think these people used to worship 101 God. But the reality is we had several names for the same God that we worshipped, depending on the time or the place. So in
sidii magacyaha Ilaahay oo kale, you know.
Among those were the Aga. The Swahili consider him as a deity that they borrowed from the Kushitic people. Aga, Swahili pronounce it Aka. Qofka Swahiliga markuu yaaba marka around Vanga area in Kenya and Tanzania, qofka Swahiliga markuu yaaba he will say Aka. In the Hosingo area and Afmadow, those areas, qofka Somaliga markuu yaaba will go like Aga. Aka. Now, this movement of the Somalis from south to the north was long time ago. To an extent, now what Somalis know about this whole thing is the journey of returning to the south. That is that caught up with the recent time. That is the modern time, from the Dulmadhante generation. That is where people have memory of it. That is why the idea of coming from the north is stronger than the idea of coming from the south. But when you look at what supports this theory that we came from Lake Turkana, came to the south and the coastal side of Kenya and Somalia to the north, what supports that is the Somali times, Somali calendar. We have the seasons, the Somali seasons, and the month in which they should be. For example, there is the first month of spring, of Soma spring, Gusomen.
ما garanayo laakiin guud waxa meen ahayd waqtiga roobka daa Somaha roobka daa beeraha soo baxayaan.
The first month between the Rendile and the Somali, it is called Fushede. Fushede means you are very assured of the rain that is going to rain. The only place right now where you are so sure of raining at that time is Marsabit in Kenya. That this month it will rain. Fushede idea ahaan af Soomaaliya dan ku sheego geela sida loo shubaya in the well. Waxa la gaarayaa bisha cawada markay in the middle of that night, that is the nag of that night, when people think that this month is going to this the rain is the fushada is to start that time. Asirkeeda geela waa la fulin, ceelkana waa la dadi, which means people are so sure that tomorrow it will start raining for the gu. The only place where the gu is so reliable is in northern Kenya. The rest of Somalia, even the southern Somalia, is not that reliable. north iskabada at the time of Haga, for example. Haga in Somali is the cold season, the winter. That is when mar ay Hagayad da'do qabowna jiro. People in the north of Somali world experience the Arabic summer at that time, which is very hot. To an extent now, in the north, for example, in area of Somaliland and Ogaden region and Djibouti, and the word Haga is now misunderstood to mean hot time or hot spell or dry spell, or the Haga has taken the name of Jilal now, the place of Jilal. Jilal is the hot season, Haga is the cold season, the winter. So all that, when you look at those things, you will realize this land in the north, far to the north, is Mardamban Tagnay. We were not originally from there. This season and this month of the Somali year were named at a time when rain was more reliable and seasons were more agreeable, and the place was in the south, not the north.
You know, when you talk about Haga, I was in Bosaso one time. I was there for a few years, actually 2 years actually. And you know, when there is like the hot season, so when they say they go to colder areas out of Bosaso. So so people thought to mean leaving the hot, but from what you said, I think it means leaving the hot and going to the cold, to the cool area.
Haga in the month like Himyar Hais Himyar Yar, this particular month in the Somalia that was supposed to be cold. The same month the south is cold, or winter in the south. In Mogadishu Rawa Da'ay, but in Bosaso is like hell. So it's the hottest time. So that tells you what happens in Bosaso. Bosaso is in the zone of Arabia already. Waxa ku dhacaya marka waxa waaye Arabian winter. Arabian winter in our Arabian summer in our winter months. Winter months ayaa waxa ku dhacaya Arabian summer. So wixii waa marka isdaba maray. It shows that migration was from south to north. Northna gadala laga tagay. It isn't the original place that we happened. Meesha aan kasoo bilaabanay means it is northern Kenya. We went south in southeast, crossed the Tana River. From Tana River, we went along the ocean, meeting Mijikendas in the lower Jubas, Mijikenda and Bantus in the lower Juba. We exchanged place. They came toward Kenya. We went toward north. That is the way. When you look at the myth, then you consider these months and the Somali seasons. When you consider all this together, you'll realize the only way this is possible is that.
Okay. All right. MashaAllah. That was really interesting. Now the last question, just the final question. After that, we'll conclude. We've been on here for about 2 hours. And then after that, I will try to read from the questions, like 2-3 questions from the audience, and then inshallah we'll conclude. Now this is like a lot of people want to know this, by the way, and I've been asked to ask you this question. I got it from different people, but they asked the same question. And the question is, you know the Somali Qabil names, like Isaac, Marihan, Majerten, Dulbahante, like these names, what do they mean? Because it seems like they sound like some old, Somali Qabil names. I mean, I would love to make this into another episode. Maybe next time, if we have the chance to meet, we could elaborate more on the detail. But just to keep it short, if you wish, and we should take, the bigger Qabils, like, what they really mean and their names, and inshallah, if that could be something that you could do.
Yeah, and the whole, when you look at Akir, the lineage, and tracing one lineage to a point, what you realize is the further you go, deeper you go into the Aptir, the more it squashes this from Arabia theories, you know. For example, my Aptir, after around to 18, 20 and names, you will go into Somali, pure Somali names, completely. So some and marka, for example, the more you go into the Aptirka gudaha aad u gasho, people understand a bit of Somali, right? When you're talking about so now, and the deeper you go into.
Sorry, dadka abtirku way fahmayaan, laakiin xoogaa af Soomaaliya haddii awoodid, you know, sidaas ku fahmaan, insha Allah.
Marka, and for example, the more you go into the Aptir, you will realize this Arabic this notion that we came from Arabia is the falsity of it and how weak it is. And for example, now let's talk about Ogaden. Soma, and it's a name. It means something in the Waqiya faith. It is among the names of Waq. It means it means omniscience, one who knows everything, one who knows everything, the past and the present. Ogaden. And now when you look at Ogaden clans, you go down, you will have Jidwak, Barwak, Tigalwak. Do you think and when we name kids, for example, what I name my daughter, when I name her daughter, when I give her a name, it's something that means something with me. Okay, it's something I consider, it's something that relates with me in a way or another. So, and when Ogaden called his son Tigalwak, Tigal means making the objective. Okay, and Tigal is Tixi watakan sama. Tixi, when you are going somewhere, that is your target. Tigalwak means now that person named that his objective is work. His objective is life is pleasing work. Tigalwak named his son Barwak. Barwak, Bar means livestock. Wak means God. So Barwak in the Waqiya sense, it means prosperity. Okay, it means God gave him livestock, enough livestock. God gave him that luck for acquiring livestock. That is Barwak. He named his son. His grandfather is Ogaden, and his father is Tigalwak. His name is Barwak. Now this Barwak gets a son, and he names him Amudan. Okay. Amudan, you know what? You know what Amudan means? It means Amamudid. Amamudid is the work of God. That is skillful. You know, when you, with that artistic notion, you know, when you create something with that artistic, talent. Farshahan wixii loo sameeya. Waxaas Amudan amar. Do you think this guy did not have an objective? His grandfather is Ogaden. He is called Amudan. His father is Barwak. His grandfather is Tigalwak. His name is Ogaden. Ogaden was the son of Absame. It means something in the Somali philosophy. When two people from close blood lineage marry each other for the first time from that community, the child they give birth to is called Absame. Like Ali marrying Fatima from Bani Hashim. They were the first from Bani Hashim, right?
Yeah.
Hassan Hussein. Now, those are the kind of people you call Absame. People who marry from close family for the first time. The child they get, that is the child they call Absame. Absame meant something in the Waqiya. That is what it meant. Go father, Absame, Komade. Komade, and that means what now we mean, Hindiga. Indian, they call him Guru. You know Guru? You have even in English, it's referred Guru Nak Guru.
Oh, Guru, yeah, Guru. Yeah.
Komade and Guru are basically the same thing. Komade is somebody who observes life.
Komade means Guru.
Guru, yeah, from a passive point. Looking at it, you just go to him, ask him questions. Komade.
Like someone who has his job is to someone who has spiritual job to do. Like for example, people go to him for spiritual needs.
Not spiritual, actually secular. He is the custodian of wisdom. He's a person who thinks, a thinker, sits somewhere trying to solve problems, deal with issues. Komade's father was Kablallah, the equivalent of today's Nasib. Markaad qof magac u sheegayso waxaad dhahaysaa ilmaha qaar loo bixiyo ma arkin Nasib means Kablallah is that exactly what it means. Now you want to tell me that Kablallah hadana dar odd, dar iyo odd were the same in the social anthropology. It is in the same line with Makahil and Kun'il, warlike epoch. A generation of warlike people where a lot of fighting was happening. Makahil means Makahil Ba. You are the firstborn of your father. You are born at a time of clan war or tribal wars. So you are born dalashada aad dhalatay Makahil Ba. Makahil Bekata. Are you here to support? That is the name you give to a war. Give a name given. Darod is the same thing.
More like avenger. In English, you would say an avenger. Were you born to avenge your father, or were you born to avenge your family? That's what Makahil means.
Yeah, the names of the Kun'il generation. Kun'il generation is war generation. So Darod is the same generation. Ogaden is the time for religiosity and religion and philosophy and and prosperity and peace. So when you look at these names, you realize even the way we apply it, the place we put them in the ladder of sometimes you will find a number, a name down there is even older than the name, the clan, the whole clan is, for example, and this is now what I'm talking about, and I'm basing this on on the clan and where I come from, because I don't want the petty people talking about going into defense immediately. So that is the point now. What we are talking about here is Somali clans. When you look at these names, Abtirka hadad gadal ugu noqota, you will realize the lies stops us at where this Arabian notion we came from, Arabs, Stafkas, where your name stops being Arabic. There's no Islamic names. And Islamic name wa din kusasa keenay idea nafteedaba. Islamic name your name is supposed to mean something to you and to the people who speak the same language with you. nabiga markuu ninka u imaaday, ninka kaliya magaca kaliya bedelay waxa waaye the difficult names, difficult in the sense that the pessimistic names that were normally talking about negative names, that is, and he changed them to positive names. But the rest, the name means something, and we can use in social anthropology, we can use the name of the clan to tell you that this, beside this political union, beside this Darod, Hawiya, Isaac, this idea, you can see through it and realize some giants in the clan ladder are actually progeny of some people who are not known now or who are down in the ladder. You will realize these things came at the clan we have right now. The clans we have right now are product of political union. Coming together, defend. Somalis, for example, don't care about history. We don't care that we are very progressive, very pragmatic. We don't care about past stuff. For example, today we are fighting. Then I realized from that other clan, I have we have the same interest. Maybe we share a well. So what I do is I forget about my normal clan that I am fighting with. I will join this clan. I become part of them. 50 years down the line, I belong to the clan.
What does qaran mean? Can you tell the people what qaran means?
Qaran is when clan, actually you have to look at the Somali clan as an insurance company. That is exactly what the service it does. Qaran marka waxa waaye when somebody in the community is in need of financial assistance, when he needs hand, when he needs to be protected, the kind of money or aid that is given to them, whether it is qaran that people collect for fighting or buying weapons, or for qaran that is collected to pay the blood, what you call diya, to pay the diya. So every person in the community requires an insurance company. Now clan serves that. That is why the liberals and the Islamists will try their best to destroy the clan system and make people forget, but they cannot until you give people alternative, something alternative to, if the state will become so strong that it can aid the English can we don't care for the community we belong to. Why? Because the government is so active in helping people. wadadii idaa dhistay, haddii qof wax la yeela booliiskiya jooga, haddii uu qof gaari ku dhaco there is a law, hadduu qof kale gaari ku dhufta there is an insurance company that will serve that purpose. That is why these people don't care about their clan and where they come from. Annagana, and we still need that thing that came from with the clan. And by the way, waxaan ka wada sheekadana idin waxa waaye clan iyo dhiig isma laha. You may come from a clan, you are fighting for it, you are dying for it, but the one you are killing, maybe blood-wise, belong to that clan more than you. Marba is damarten somewhere in the history. So, and clan idea of clan, we have to introduce another thing, another entity that fills the blanket, the vacuum, I mean, that fills the vacuum and takes over for the interest of the people. So marka hadda maxaan ku keenay sheekadan marka aragto clanka Soomaalida oo haas aad u dhuuxata magacyada abtirkaaga, in when you apply a little bit of the world knowledge of waxa la dhahaa social anthropology ama cultural anthropology, magac walba waxaad geen kartaa a particular time. magarat magac walba macnaha hadda ciidaha magacyadooda lama sheegi kara. People way ku saseen xogaaga Soomaalida dhalinyarada especially aad ay ugu saseen hadda. I would have used several examples to place one clan above the other, when in reality it's not like that right now. Politically,
the thing is, like, right now we're learning. In my channel, I do a lot of controversial topics, so people are used to, me talking about everything. So you don't have to worry about that. This is a very like go on.
Point ka sheegi rabo waxa waaye, and there's nothing real about the whole thing, and there's nothing blood about it. And I remember Dodan and Allah unharista and abwaanki weyna yaan ugu tagay Ethiopia sometimes. I think waxay ahayd 2000 and adiga 2011 meelahaas yaan mar ugu tagay meel marka waxaan ugu tagay script isaga lahaa arrimo noocaasaan ugu tagay. Then waan sheekaysanay, then hal hadal wuxuu yiri adeer abtirkaaga you meesha dhaafin. Intuu oday sheego wuxuu yiri odayga ayuu kor u dhaafin. Then he gave me a very, you know, the logic in the statement. Allah ya wuxuu yiri intaas ka badan maskax laguma qaadi karo, macnaha is above the memory. macnaha wuxuu ka wadaa from this old man up wa creation that was created for political purpose or surviving purposes. marka dhibta waxa waaya waxan memory uu ku dhisnaa. For example, waxa dhici karta ciidan ku abtirsada iyo cida kale ku abtirsada. For example, hadaan dhaho reer hebel baan ahay, reer hebel baan ka ahay, between these two people there might be like 20 other names oo beshan galay. ma garatay 20 gan marka waa laga boodi, waxa looga boodi waxa they are not useful. Okay, waxa tiigsani the useful one, the name that of the that means power, for example. shakada haday isbedesho waad arkaysaa up to now you see when siyaasadda Soomaalida markay isku dhacaan waxaad arki cid aan la sheegi jirin oo la sheegi, nin aan la sheegi jirin oo la sheegi. maxaa laba nin siyaasad isku haysto, labadan is xulufaysanaysa meel hal oday oo kii hore ka hooseeya iyo iskugu imaan oo ay rabaan inay kan kala daaqada ka turaan. So waxa waaya waa company that is used for the benefit of politics and survival. marka cidaad sheeganna inaad ahaynaa u dhici karta oo kan aad dilaysa oo cidaad darteed u dilaysa inuu ka yahay cidaas oo cida kaaga dhow yahay bilaad ahaan. marka taasaa jirta. marka Somali names meesha hadda waxaan ku keenay sheekadan abtirso meeshii carabiga aad kaga baxda waxaad gashay waaqiya. Okay, the place you
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
waaqiyadii iyo the faith before Islam.
So as soon as, like, let's say your name's Abdullah, Muhammad, Hussein, Ali, whatever, as soon as the Arabic names change into something you don't understand, that's the waqiya part.
That is the waqiya part. So that is the
okay. So what do you think? So can you tell us what, you know, the names mean? Like, for example, Dul Bahante and Majerten, what does that mean? For instance,
Dulmad Hante is the waxay dhahaan cowrie shell. Dulmad waa cowrie shell, waa anjalelka.
Anjalel, what's that? What's Anjalel?
Cowrie shell.
Cowrie shell.
You know the cover of the snail.
Okay.
You know,
okay. The shell. Yeah.
The shell kasa ya dulmad la dhahaa. Dulmad Hante marka waxa waaya a time when cowrie shell was used as means of money. So it will tell you exactly, it will place you reer magaalnimada taalay iyo waqtigi the time it was, the era, the epoch uu jiray. Majertan marka dhahda waxaad arkaysaa waa nin suuq joogaba majeerasho. You can tell looking at something with an interest. Ninka baadiyaha jooga wax ma majeerto. Normal time, you know, it's like life and death. wax ka u dhaxeeya male. When you look nuzha your raaxaysi marka wax u ya majeerasho ah, that is the adi marka aad qaabata marka magaca marka aragta you can play. And by the way, these names way soo noqon jireen. So when you see jidwaq in the waqi mythology, doesn't mean the jidwaq that is a clan today. Okay, when you see siwaq in the waq mythology, it doesn't mean it is the siwaq that exists today ama abudwaq that exists today. It is magacyada waa lagu noqon jiray. For example, the Majerten I'm talking about or majeerasho iyo kii kala ah might not be the Majerten we are talking about now. The clan that exists now.
The political confederation.
Inuu ahayna dhici karta. Marka hadalku wuxuu yahay ereyada markaad fiiriso waxaad ku ila hirin kartaa casri iyo waqti aad kula hirin kartaa. They help you understand at this time what was important. wixii jiray wixii la danayn jiray. marka adiga adoon meel kale aadinba abtirkaaga markaad kor u raacdo you can know when you joined Islam. marka islaamka soo gashay yaad ogaan kartaa. waxaad ogaan kartaa inta ka horeysay odayaasha diinta haysteen. Then you go to an extent where you realize when women waa abtirka hablaha lagu abtirsan jiray. u socoto xigaari generation before Arawela. Somalis iyo Kushitic clans around them, tribes around them, abtirku wuxuu geli jiray oday hooyadu geli jiray hooyada lagu abtirsan jiray. You have
okay.
remnant.
Oh, so there was a time that we used to use our mothers for our ancestry. We used to count back. Oh wow, okay. That's
it was
never,
changed
I've
by
never heard of that.
Arawelo dynasty iyo the wrong they did.
Arwela hablaabaniya insha Allah abtirsado.
Maya iyada she was iyada boqorad noqotay waana Arawelo was a dynasty ma ahayn hal qof oo hal mar soo kacay waqti dheer u ahaa. And marka and Arawelo generation, the women who were in leadership went too much. So from there, waxaa bilowday marka hooyada oo lagu abtirsado cid ahaan, laakiin aan individually lagu abtirsano. Habar hebel dadkii marka waxay noqdeen bah hebel iyo habar hebel iyo bah hebel iyagoo ah yu islaamkii imaaday, and it came with this abtirsasho oo aabaha ah. Now halkaas ku dhamaaday. So meesha ay habar ku gaarta waxaad ka bilaabi kartaa abtirkii hooyada lagu abtirsan jiray. What you need to do is look down, look deeply on these things, a bit ponder over them. Magacyada fiiri, maxaa dhici kara marmar magaca aad u malaynayso inaan laga heli karin adduunka inuu qaamuuska caadiga ku jira. All you need to do inaad shinka ereyga hesha iyo macnaha wuxuu ka samaysan yahay. Markaad hesha, you can apply this knowledge. You can tell clanka aad ku abtirsata inuu dhashay before Islam or after Islam. عادي baad u kala ogaan.
Okay. All right. So this is, it was a really very informative, really interesting conversation. I was wondering, Marka, how would you like to conclude, and what message would you like to leave for the young people watching this and the young people who are about to watch this after this video ends? What's your last message?
My last message is this. We are not branch of anybody. We are not extension of other people. We are the root itself. Innaga asalki ah, dadka kale inaga baxeen. And we are the mother of humanity. We occupy a place where now anthropology says is the home of Homo sapiens, or where Homo inaga dalki iskale. We are the only indigenous people who can have a name for that lake, Lake Turkana, that fits the lake like a glove. Galambay, Galamboy, Galanbai, Galan Abai, whatever you call it, it means something with us. We are not extension of any other community. The land is ours. The country is ours. The Africans or the community living with us or around us are our brothers, people we lived with, brethren and brothers, people we lived with for so long. We have a lot in common as Africans before we come. So what I advise the young people to do is don't look at history as the gospel or Quranic truth. Look at history as a myth that was exploited by a stronger community or a stronger nation. Always, waxa history ka qora waxa waaye people who have no idea of it, but with a little bit of pride and ability to write at that particular time. And what we are talking about here is we are doing all this just to tackle the identity crisis that our young people have. We have identity. The whole of Horn of Africa is ours. It is our land. Oromo, Borana, Sakuye, Gabra, Rendile are our cousins. The Bantu living with us are our brothers, people we lived with for so long. So let's leave this cocoon and this small, mat or Somali nimada. You are bigger than that. Somali nimada isku haysana geeska Africa ma soo dhaafayna. We will stay there. Let's accept this bigger Kushitic umbrella. In it, we are something, and we will stop fighting the moment we realize and players are more than this. Okay, and immediately when you live around this clan card can Somalia yalla is Somalia dalka degta yalla clan card ka marka aska turto, you realize whole of East Africa is your home. From Mount Kilimanjaro to the Horn of Africa ila Alula, Bandar Qasim, from Bandar Qasim to Boni Forest, where your home. Forget about these political divisions, these artificial boundaries drawn the other day. In reality, when you look at the bigger picture, it's a big land with great potential. What we need to do is have some identity, have some beingness in us, in an dad nahay, in an aflen nahay, in an culture len nahay, in an dadnimo len nahay, in an taariikh da door weyn ka dheelay, in an nahay ummad an macnaha dorad dhalan, not extension of Arabs, not extension of Jews, not extension of anybody. In fact, they are our extensions. Iyaga extension ah. Iyaga meshi an ku dhalane ka tegay. Egyptian civilization was a great civilization, but it was just an extension of the Kushitic civilization. Inaga ka horreynay. That noocaasa u weyn baan nahay. Let's not look at what a white man not depend on a white man perspective about us, or an Arab perspective about us, or even other African perspective about us. We are ourselves. We have a big land with great potential. We are a great nation. We live with our brothers and our cousins, and the rest are humanity. So, bigger picture, Fili, Lulka is too big for us. The land we have is too big for us. The position, the opportunity we have, is small. Forget about anywhere else. Between the two rivers, River Shabelle and Juba, can feed whole of Africa. It can feed whole of Africa. It should be the basket, bread basket for whole of Africa. Marka ka bax ciyaartan lagu xiraya saxara xun oo gaar ah iyo xeeb yar oo meel lagu xiraya, dhulkan adiga iska leh, dadkan waa walaalaha, taariikhdaada way dheer tahay. We are talking about 10,000 years. Hankaada kor u qaad, stop fighting, start learning, reasoning, pondering over issues and things. Haye midda kale hadda waxaan arkayay meesha gabar yar oo u dagaalaysa Islam difaaciisa. One thing you can never do is get over it. You are too small. You cannot protect God and the religion. And on our YouTube stream hadda meesha ka socda, issue waxa waaye arrinta laga hadlaya meel dhig. Put things at the Islam. To be a Muslim means putting things in the right place. Ha ka dhigin in an Ilaahay, macnaha inuu Ilaahay bin aadan la doodaya ha ka dhigin. Wixii ha soo yaraynin. Don't make the whole issue into don't reduce the whole world into a cup. The world is big. The ideas are big. The ground to cover is even bigger. Marka waxaa samaysaan inagoo Muslim ah, danihiina qabsada, dadnimadiina ilaashada. Nabiga xadiis waxaa jiray ama tradition loo tiiriya oo ahayd kan gobta ku ah, kan jaahiliyada gobta ku ahaa ayaa gob Islaamna ku noqda Soomaal. Macnaha ashraafukum fil jaahiliya, ashraafukum fil Islam, wax noocaas oo kale ah. Marka haddaad dad tahay, haddaad bini aadan root le tahay, you already helping the humanity. You represent a place. Daaqad adduunka ka soo gashaad leedahay. You are a human being. Haddaad Muslim noqoto marka, you will be a better Muslim. Marka bal aan iska dayno fiiqa iyo inaga dhaxdeena durdurka iyo always looking for where to poke. Aan iska dhigno dad arrin weyn ay u taalla, dadnimadoodii leh, adduunkana anfac u leh. I think I spoke a lot of Somali. Sorry for that.
Well, loo baahan yahay Soomaaliga in lagu hadlo dhib ma laha, because someone was saying maalin hore on your previous video yesterday, They were like, how come you guys are not speaking Somali? You guys say a lot of important stuff. There are people, because this particular channel is for people who speak English, right? And they can't speak the language, and they need to learn their culture. And so that's the purpose of this main channel. Marka wallahi, that's a really like that's a really a good farin or hopefully everybody learns their culture, know who you are. When it comes to this whole qabil issue, I believe in there is qabil and there's qabyalad, right? I normally tell people, embrace your qabil, embrace your origin, who you are, like because qabil gives you a place to go back to. It's more like an oral history to give you an understanding of who you are. And then you have qabyalad, hating someone. It's like it's ignorance, like hating someone for, at the end of the day, we're all related. Like if we were to count our mother's side, we're all the same qabil. Because on a mother's side, every mother is a different qabil. So I'm just saying, like, also like young people, like, inshallah, I hope they learn from this. And inshallah,
before you conclude, the more in humanity, in human beings, the way we behave, unless we are shaped by education system and in Buddhist normally the more similar you are to one another, the more you try to look, the more you try to differentiate it to be different from each other. Somali's problem is to how we are one people. We even look alike. To the rest of the people, we look the same people. So we try to look a way to be different from each other. So has some imaginary differences, or din lagu saleeyay, qabil lagu saleeyay, and they are not real differences on the ground. Ma jira macnaha marka waxa waaya hadaad dirinta weynaysato, if you expand the tent, you realize waxan aan ku daalayna ma aha. For example, hadda Leicester aan joogaa, London aan joogtaa, soo maha, waa laba tuulo. haddii aad dhulka Soomaalida u fiiriso, laba tuulo isu dhawaa weliba, soo maha. bal ka fiiri marka waxaad ka fiirisaa inta qof dhexdeenaas ku nool oo bini'aadan ah, mid Far East ka imaaday, mid Indian subcontinent ka imaaday, mid Africa ka imaaday, Ingiriiska dhulka lahaa, oo iyagaba ah boqolaal ummad oo isku soo jabtay, starting from the Vikings and the Nords, isku dar waxaas, the Germanic tribes that came later, isku dar ummadahaas oo isku soo jabiyey. marka aniga hadii hadda isku kan fiirisa, marka waxaan isu fiirsanaa dan laana Soomaa. The reason why you should fiiri the dhulkii isku dagaalayay, dadka xagga jooga haday is dagaalaan, ceel isku dagaalaan, adiga meeshan isu jirna iyo inta dhaxdeena ku jirta, that we are not even important to them, we're irrelevant. Imagine, that is one thing. London joogta, laba maqaaxiba la kala fadhiya, waxa la sameeynaya wixii la dhihi jiray fadhi ku dir rehebel. Wallahi waa inaan siyaasadda ka saarna. You are talking about a land of 500,000 miles ka jirta. dadka halkaa jooga ha is hayaana, adiga labada meel kala fadhin su imaada wixii dan ku ah. London ta aad joogto wixii dan u ah, ilmahaada hankooda qaadi kara, ummadihi kala aad wax ugu tari karta. For example, look at when you are a Somali, you are helpful, you can help the British, the American, the German, because you come from a different culture. You bring to the trough a part of you to the trough that the whole world shares. This is the melting point of the world. Waxaagi soo bandhig, ummadaha kale ha ka faa'iideystaan. Inta aad isku noqon tahay, haye kii aan isku noqnaan waaye Ingiriis u noqon. When let's say my 4-year-old speaks English, what will she help with the Pakistani neighbor? Idi Ingiriis ku hadashaa, Pakistani neighbor canugeyga muxuu ka dheefi? waxyaalo fara badan, macnaha waxaan leeyahay dana badan ayaa noo yaala. inta joogna, we forget about that land. dadkeeda way ka adag yihiin. We lived in Somalia and Horn of Africa for the last, let's say, 10,000 years. hadda meelay aadi ma leh, dadkeeda u jooga. intaad joogta Soomaa, inta wax ka qabo. inta dadnimadaada ka muuji inta dad ka noqo afkaagi inta ka dhis ummadaha kale afkaagi iyo culturagaagi la wadaag bini aadanka wax ku soo dar be useful. That is the point. Sorry for
no problem. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate for the time. Wallah, I've learned a lot, and I hope a lot of people learned so much as well. Just to conclude, I just want to tell everybody this is the oral history or the mythology of the Kushitic story from a Somali perspective. Bedouin he traveled a lot. He's been to many Kushitic regions, and he gathered a lot of. He even lived with Rendile people. He lived with all these people that he's talking about. And you know, so yeah. So what we're talking about, basically, we're not saying any Deen Islam. We're not promoting non-Islamic. Someone here was saying earlier, why is he promoting non-Islamic agenda or whatever? And we're not trying to promote stuff like that. All we're trying to promote, or what we're trying to talk about, is our origin, and that our food, where we are today, that's where we come from. We've always been here. We've always been who we are. The land has always belonged to us. We are the original people. Even when you look at bibliology, science, history, all sorts of history, when you look at the Kushitic people all the way to Mesopotamia, once upon a time was a Kushitic kingdom, and a lot of people, the first kingdoms that were established in Mesopotamia were Kushitic people. Even Akkadian and Sumer, before these people came up. Long story short, what we're just trying to say is that as Somalis, as Kushitic people, our history is old, so we shouldn't, like Adher Bedouin said, we shouldn't narrow ourselves to people who came yesterday, like the so-called Semitic Caucasians of today were influenced by Kushitic speaking people. And I think to some extent, I think Adher Bedouin will agree with me as well, that what do you call it, the Semitic language is just another branch that broke away from the Kushitic language. I think that's what I think. That's my theory. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I think. But at the end of the day, inshallah, I hope you all the best. Thank you for watching, and thank you for coming, Adher Bedouin. It was very honorable to have you. Thank you so much.
You did me honor. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. Everybody, please subscribe, like, share for more information. And if you want me to talk about something else, inshallah, comment down below all the questions you have, then I'll send it. And if we get the time, I'll try to have another interview with Bedouin, inshallah. Next week, Saturday, I've got an interview with Muhammad Artan. I've had him before, and this time we're going to talk about the history of Yemen and Somalia, and inshallah خير بإذن الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
You have to cut it from your side, and then I can cut it from here.